Hello, 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 and happy Tuesday. Um,
Hey
so,
everyone.
so before we dig in, I just want to say that it looks a little different today. Due to the rising numbers of COVID-19, we have decided that it is our duty as a network, a group of people, and we have responsible for multiple people here to decide to do a social distancing show. And we're going to be doing this for a while. Hopefully, things start turning around soon. But until then, everyone, please make sure you test it. Make sure you socially distance. Make sure you are sanitizing and doing everything you can to protect you, yourself, loved ones, others from the coronavirus. With
Absolutely. I can't urge you guys enough to make sure you're getting tested. All of the tests are being made free now,
Mhm.
which I think should have been the case from the beginning, but there's no excuse. Just make sure you're getting tested.
So, with all that said, before we dig into some topics today, and we have a wonderful show lined up for you today still. We do have the former executive director and now the state representative elect of District 12 here to talk about the Parra decision yesterday. And also, we have here today, we have finally, she's here, Tammy Brown, and I'm really excited to talk to her on
Yes,
today and talk
ma'am.
to you guys and talk with Taylor. But before we go, can someone please tell Donald Trump to just concede? It's over. You've lost already. It's
You
done. Like
lost.
you didn't have it. You didn't have it. You see, what you did was you did this for your spirit fingers. These are spirit fingers. And Joe Biden had the spirit fingers. Just concede. I mean, at this point, it is absolutely ridiculous for you to
and you know,
continue to hold on. Let me finish for a second, Taylor. It's
go for it.
absolutely ridiculous for him to continually do this when you're dividing the country further and further. Did you know, Taylor, that now there are two news networks that have grown from like on 100,000 views to almost 3 million views, right? Because of the fact that Donald Trump has now classified Fox News as fake news because
God.
they called Joe Biden the winner. Tell me how
Oh
you feel.
God. And it's funny. At first, I saw that he was like his team was projecting that he would, relinquish power. And he was
He ain't
like
really losing no
accepting.
power.
He was accepting the result, and then all of a sudden, he was like, "Actually, just kidding. Nope, fake news."
I mean, seriously, I mean, you're a loser. You've lost. It's over. It's done with. Hang it up. You don't
Capiche?
got it. I
You're
mean, I don't know what
fired.
you feel. You're fired. Like it's okay. It's okay. Plenty of people have been fired from their jobs. You can now join the unemployment line that you created.
Just like 49
Congratulations.
percent of their country, whatever.
Mhm. So, Taylor, I see you are at home. You are actually on your set where you have your tea with Taylor.
Of course, yeah, yeah. I'm cozy in my home office. Yeah, where I do my digital show, Tea with Taylor, and I figured
Mhm.
it was only right since we get to stay home that I be in my cozy little spot.
Well, I'm here in my bedroom slash office
ah,
slash where I do my push-ups when I do the push-ups.
ah.
But yeah, this is my cozy little bedroom. I got my slippers on while I'm talking to you.
Oh yeah, oh
And
yeah.
we have a full house, which is wonderful. Got my little cousins here and things of that nature. And so you might hear a little crying and stuff like that, audience. But you know what? Those of you out there that know family, like you gotta be ready for that. And so many of us are doing the same thing, working from home, um,
It's the perks of
having to
being
hunker
us. Yeah.
down, creating home offices, things of that nature. Tell me something that you've done to make yourself cozy when you have to work from home.
Me?
Yeah, you.
Oh, ew! Don't answer me like that. I
Who
mean,
else am I
I've
talking to?
actually.
I mean, well,
We do have a full house here on the Progress Report today too. even though we're all virtual, we do have a full house. You guys will
We
see
do,
soon.
but I mean,
But I put a lot of effort into making my apartment comfortable because I moved here during the start of quarantine.
mhm.
Me and my partner put a lot of effort into making our place comfortable and as much as we could during those times. So um, I feel very comfortable working from home. And if I, feel like I'm not being productive or I want to like take a break, I love, 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 love to use the excuse of having my dog with me so I could just take her to the park. Just a nice way to break it up.
Yeah. See, I don't have a dog or a cat. Well, there are dog. There's a dog and a cat in the house, but they're not mine. So I don't take the dog for a walk, and no, I'm not petting the cat and cuddling with the cat.
Yeah, no.
Um,
If it's not yours, it's not the same bond.
no, no, it's not. But I'm hoping, after all this, because I have to quarantine for a couple myself because I came in contact. Um, I'll be getting tested this week. I believe it's on Thursday, is my test. So hopefully come out negative. Last week I went for a rapid. I was supposed to go for a rapid test.
Didn't go.
But anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that the rapid test has been the most easily accessed option for testing. Um, it is sometimes it may take up to 48 hours, but it is the most accessible route for testing. And
I mean,
my
I
friends have
think I
done
think
that.
people should regardless of the fact, you feel a little sick, you're not feeling well, things like that, still get tested just to check out because you got to protect a lot of people. So
Absolutely,
that's that.
especially
So
with
with
the
all
science
that
coming back.
said, with all that said, so we have the former director of the Providence External Review Authority, Jose Batista. Jose was with us actually during the primary. He ran and he also won that seat for the District 12 state representative. Before we bring Jose in, um, I'm not sure if you are aware that Jose had released two videos of Providence Police Sergeant Joseph Hanley assaulting a black man who was handcuffed and laying on the ground. Um, so we're gonna show we're gonna show the video. We're gonna show the video in one moment. One moment. Um, but let me just tell you, the point of para, for those of you who've been watching, should the point of para is to and the purpose, and it says it in their bylaws what the purpose of para is. And I'm going to bring it up right here and exactly what it says. And it says effective January 1st, 2018, and pursuant to Chapter 18 and a half, Section 2 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Providence, the Providence External Review Authority, PARA, is established and shall, open quote, create and implement community outreach programs, review policies and procedures of the Providence Police Department, and review allegations of misconduct on the part of sworn officers of the City of Providence the City Police Department,
Right.
including investigating the same and conducting hearings and making findings of the fact with respect to those allegations. So that's the purpose of para. Okay. And we're going to show the video and then come back. But Chris, can you play that video for us, please?
And I believe this is the body cam.
This is the police officer body cam. Yeah. When I first seen this, I just personally couldn't believe it.
Yeah. And I was just telling the guys here at the progress report earlier that I saw this firsthand because this happened in my neighborhood, actually right across the street. Are we getting the audio?
Get the fuck out.
I think we're getting the. Hope our viewers are getting.
I'm gonna fucking take your neck, lady. You're going to. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the fucking car, you dumb fuck. Come on. Yo, why you pulling me like this? Get out of the fucking car. Get out. Yo, why are you pulling me? Buddy, you better go. Yo, why are you pulling me?
Turn around.
You want to be a big guy?
Turn around.
Put your hand behind your back. Put your hand behind your back.
All set.
Yo, why are you pulling me like this? Shut up.
All set.
And what you don't see is
tough guy?
the
See
four
the tough
cops
guy?
that are in the
Get on your
street.
stomach.
Because there
You're on
were
your stomach
also
right now,
four
big
cops
guy.
behind this car in the street on foot, watching the other two officers yank the car.
It's hard to watch it's hard to watch.
You got it, baby. You got it. All right? You good? Yo, you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. Big fucking tough guy. Right? You got what you wanted. You got what you wanted, right? Okay, we good? We good, big boy? Yes. Then shut up. You act like an animal, I'm gonna handle it. 45. Yo, what did I do?
Shut up.
Yo, what did I do? What did I do? 45. Yo, what did I do?
Shut up.
Yo, what did
I mean, other sergeant, please.
I do? Yo, this is a dream. Shut up. Yo, you kidding me? What I do? Big guy. Oh, shit, are you kidding me? You wanted that, right? Yo, this is a dream. Vinny. Are you kidding me? Go get a cruiser, pal. Yep. Nice job.
Shut up.
Act like a savage, that's the get. Yo, are you kidding me? Yo, I'm not moving.
You should have got out of the car, bro. I told you multiple times. Multiple times to get out of the car.
Give him one good chance to get up and act like a man and walk to the cruiser. Yo, are you kidding me? Get up.
Bring your feet
Yo,
back.
what did I do? Get up on your feet. What did I do here?
Get up.
Oh shit! What? Yeah, help me up. Oh, where'd you go? Man, I'll walk over there. No, where's you go? We're going to jail too. Yo, going to? Okay. Yo, what did I do? Yeah, you act like an asshole from a block away. All of a sudden, you don't want to act like an asshole. No, real talk. What did I?
Get in the car.
Pat him down if he's okay.
So as you see there, he's
Yo, what crime did I commit?
Getting put in the car.
Committed a crime? Yeah, but you're resisting arrest, so you're gonna move. I swear to God, on my life, I'm not resisting arrest as long as we have all our GoPros on, our shoes on. We're good. I did not resist.
When you're told to get out the car and put your hands on your back, you
Yo,
don't do that in public
I was just getting in the car and I was in the passenger seat. I got pulled out of the passenger seat.
It makes no difference.
There's
What's
no
here?
way I wouldn't have got out
What's this thing?
of a passenger seat. I don't have anything on me. I don't have
He's asking you a
I don't
question.
have anything on me. I'm answering the question.
What do you have in your pocket?
I don't have anything on me. I'm lying. I don't have
so that's just like really, really. Now, Taylor, you had said that happened. You remember that video after seeing it, rewatching the video. You had said you
Literally right across the street. Like you know, you've been to my house, so I actually heard the screaming of the people saying, the female saying no 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 no, and looked out the window because I thought maybe someone might be in trouble. Although mentality.
Before
I heard the person screaming saying no no no. So I looked out my window and I saw literally the car shaking side to side as the officers were yanking.
so before I bring before I bring and I'm gonna say Representative elect Batista in, um, here are the facts. Sergeant Hanley was kneeling on the back and neck and shoulder. Um, and also he got the victim was punched in the ribs on the left side, kicked in the rib area, kicked in the head, and they were also walked on the back of his leg. And you also hear when you look at the evidence, you can hear in the video, at a time you hear him say, you hear Sergeant Henley saying, "You want to be a tough guy." And I just, and this is not the first complaint. There's been 40 complaints through Para, and you know what? I'm so happy to have Jose here. He's a good friend of mine. So without further ado, let's dig right in. Let's talk to Jose about this. Can we bring Jose in?
Hey, everybody. How's it going? Thank you for having me on the show.
Hey,
How you
thanks
doing,
for
Jose?
being here.
And we also have Tammy Brown here as well. Tammy Brown is from, sorry, one second, please. Tammy Brown is a lifelong Rhode Islander dedicated to making the state a better and more just place to live. She is a theatrical artist who runs the gamut from activism, social justice oriented art pieces to Shakespeare productions and human statues. Tammy, a board member of the Women's Project Artivism efforts to utilize the power of art to shift conversations. And I'm glad both of you are here to talk about this with me. But I want to start with Jose. Jose, last night there was a meeting and you were dismissed from your post. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I mean, I'd rather not, but
yeah. I mean, I was in that meeting, and let me tell you something. It was a bunch of bull, and I know you probably don't want to. You're trying to have a peaceful transition on it, but I sat in that meeting, and let's be let's be quite frank. I think you did the community a service. You did the job. You did the charter. You should have your job.
well, I
Para
mean,
is created to keep cops accountable. And because you did what you were commissioned to do, in my opinion, by releasing that video, I think, you were literally, again, just doing what you were commissioned.
no, well, I mean, I appreciate that. I was trying to be funny earlier. I'm happy to talk to you folks, and I'm happy to be honest with the community. And I think part of what I'm trying to figure out immediately is how can I be honest with the community? First and foremost, I've had hundreds of people reach out to me from well beyond Providence, well beyond Rhode Island, and in a couple cases, even outside of the United States, just like, police violence, governmental violence is not unique to the United States. It's not unique to our communities. And so it's been so overwhelming. On the one hand, what happened last night's meeting, if you want to call it a meeting, um, was tragic and embarrassing and undeserving of the people of this city. But that's sometimes what we run into in the fight for justice. It's not always pretty. And on the one hand, obviously, I'm not, it wasn't my goal to get fired. But on the other hand, I think this was like a really bad breakup that was just happening very slowly over the course of months. Um,
Oh, yeah.
what can I tell you? I mean, yeah, I'm going to pause there because I can really keep on going, but I'm happy to answer any particular questions you folks have. I know you played the video. I know, Dion, you mentioned one of the quotes that the Hanley used. I think another quote that he used in there that was really terrible was, towards the end, he says, if you want to act like an animal, we'll treat you like an animal, or something to that effect. And it just speaks to, I don't know, our system
You
is
want to be a
just,
tough guy.
yeah, and he calls him an animal, and like, I think I'll give you one thought that I have about policing that I've been bouncing around in my mind a lot, and I said this at the press conference last week when I released the videos. A lot of the solution to this, I think, has to do with the word A-N-D. I think that we treat some of the goals in policing as mutually exclusive, right? Like we have to accept the violence if we want to accept policing. Like policing is a one package, and if we want people that you can call on 911 when somebody's breaking into your house, then you have to accept the violence at the same time. And it's like, no, we can work with the police department that's supposed to help us and save babies from suffocating as they did, and get the molesters of child violence as they did this summer. Like, we can honor the good stuff and the sacrifice and the good men and women who do work, and hold the department to a higher standard. I think that, as frustrating and as painful as it was to be fired, I think that my story has become exhibit A in our city's incapacity to confront difficult facts. Policing is an institution that is rooted in slavery and racism. Like, that's just a fact. We're not calling the
Let me
people that. I'm sorry.
let me ask Tammy a question on this. So Tammy, do you think that um, the decision by Para to say, hey, well, the board to say, hey, we don't want to release this video, give it out to you. Do you think that puts a lack of faith in the community? I mean, in the lack of faith from the community to want to report something that happens?
100%. Like, I think this is why we've had these like sort of nationwide debates for decades, but especially like over the summer, it's kind of come to a boiling point. And you have these sort of catchphrases of abolish the police, defund the police, and things like that. And people kind of get into the semantics of the wording. But at the end of the day, you have to look at the institutions. And if an institution is so hell bent on not taking feedback from the community, not reforming its policies, not holding its members accountable in any way, shape, or form, then we have to look at the institution and see like what needs to be done to change this. I mean, you can't on the one hand say that police are above reproach, they're above criticism, they're above accountability, and while they're tormenting the citizens, you can't have it both ways. And you also can't accept, there's a whole lot, this whole situation is so infuriating, but it's also like the thing I keep going back to with this video in particular, and thank you so much, Jose, for putting it out into the public, because that's where it needs to be. And the public needs to see this and be aware of what is going on in the Providence Police Department. But they assaulted this man for no reason. They had no business interacting with this man, period.
None.
He kept asking, what did I do? He did nothing. What he did was maybe yell at the cops. I didn't realize that yelling at the cops was a crime. You can yell at the cops. You can yell at whoever you want to yell at.
And like you guys have been both kind of touching on, for like it's just that the institution of policing has been so intertwined with violence and with the extremist use of power that they don't want to change it. They're comfortable with it being the way that it is, and that's because it benefits them the most. So that's mostly the problem.
And the thing is, like, I get into this conversation with people, the sort of, I'm in the ACAB camp, the all cops are bad camp, and people will debate with me, and but my cousin's a cop and he's not bad. And I say, if he was one of the 4 cops, Taylor, that you mentioned, that stood and watched, and he wasn't yanking the person out of the car, but he stood and watched, then he's bad. If he's on the commission and is not allowing for any type of oversight and doesn't demand that Sergeant Hanley is immediately fired, then he's bad. They're bad. If they don't demand reform, they're bad.
Exactly. And like I said, I was in that meeting last night, and the great thing is to see that the community came out in support of for you, Jose. You had plenty of people to say, hey, look, we the community, we the people have the right to know what's going on in a police department that, yes, many of our taxes fund. Our taxes help fund the police department, not in a big way, don't get me wrong, but it does help fund the police department. We have the right to know what's going on in our police department. We have the right to report things. And when we do report something, we should have the confidence that it's investigated to the fullest and not an injunction coming down or a subpoena coming down from the top cop in the state to say, "Hey, no, you can't do this. We don't want it. We don't want it shown." Then what's the point of Para? What was the point of putting it together? To make it look good? To put just to put a coat of paint on a car where the engine's still not running correctly?
And not for nothing, why was only one cop's body cam on? Because I physically saw more than one.
Got a point there, Taylor. You have a point there. You have a point there, Taylor. And you know what? You know what surprises me, everyone, on this is that we're how dumb are people these days to realize that there's more than one way that you can get caught doing something out here. Not just the body cam, but cell phones, store cameras, things of that nature. Jose,
with the cops, like they don't care
sorry.
because clearly, you know, George Floyd was murdered on camera and there was no murder charges.
Right.
They can do anything they believe they can do anything they want on camera and there's nothing going to happen. But that's why we have to keep fighting. We have to keep pushing.
Yeah, that's
That's
exactly
so
why they keep
frustrating.
fighting. That's exactly why they keep fighting. So, and you can answer this and tell me if you want to answer this question or not. But since 2018, Para has received over 40 complaints, and we're not able to investigate one. Is there a reason why that there was not you couldn't investigate those?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you a little bit about the process, and the reality is, I feel a lot more comfortable saying it now. But Para was set up to fail from the beginning. I was not hired until March of 2019. Para met for the first full year and essentially did nothing. On the one hand, you could argue that they listened to a diverse set of stakeholders and all that stuff, but it was a way of sitting and doing nothing. The urgency that exists in the city, the violence that exists in the city, I don't think we had the privilege to sit and do nothing for a year, but that's what Para opted to do. And so I finally brought in an executive director in March of 2019. And before I even officially took my position, I could already smell the trouble, right? The people who oppose this work, they're not gonna, look you in the face and tell you that they oppose this work. They're gonna find all these other excuses. And so, for example, the excuse with the Hanley video is, well, we take this case so seriously that we press criminal charges against him, and we don't want to jeopardize the criminal charges. And if we publish this video, it's going to jeopardize the criminal charges, and we're not going to be able to hold him accountable. Now, for folks who don't go to court and don't, watch trials and are not lawyers and stuff like that, that sounds like it makes sense, and it sounds like, oh man, these folks take it really seriously. But when you find out that the probability of us releasing that video damaging the criminal case is like this big, and even the people who are promoting that excuse will off the record recognize, we don't really have anything to worry about, but they're still promoting that excuse even as recently as this morning. It's everybody's complicit, right? Everybody's complicit and covering it up. I've said also, I'm not a perfect person. I'm not a perfect executive director. I made tons of mistakes, but my one thing that I thought I did well was a willingness to have a conversation. Right, with this Hanley case, I can make a strong argument that there should be a felony charge against Sergeant Hanley. I can make a strong argument that there should be multiple counts of assault against Sergeant.
I mean, handcuffing, putting abuse on someone who's handcuffed, isn't that a felony charge?
So there's two questions with a felony, right? If you hit somebody with your hands, like if you punch somebody, that's going to be a misdemeanor simple assault, which is what Hanley's charged with. If you hit somebody, if you grab something like a beer bottle and break it over somebody's head, now that's assault with a dangerous weapon, which is a felony. There's also one other category, which is what we were arguing this should be, right? If you hit somebody and you cause serious bodily injury, that can be considered a felony. But the law is a little bit more broad than that, right? You'll hear the folks who oppose this say, oh, well, Mr. Gore, that's the name of the person that was being assaulted, he didn't suffer any injuries, therefore this is not a felony. And I think that analysis is fundamentally incomplete, because the courts have said that it's not just actually causing a serious bodily injury, but did the conduct that you commit, could it have caused a serious bodily injury? And I think the question here is absolutely. Now, again, I don't want to come down and say, listen, I'm 32 years old and I've had 5 years practicing as a lawyer and I know everything. That's not the person that I am. The people who are on the other side of this argument, they'll try to paint what I'm saying as some exaggerated thing, and it's not. But what I'm saying is, why are we unwilling to have this conversation? Why are the public servants who are elected by us and funded by us kind of trying to rush to close the book? And then I'm like, what are you
Right.
folks afraid of? Like, let's have this conversation. If I'm wrong, educate me. If the public is
Right,
wrong, let's have this
right.
conversation.
So,
That's my
so
major question too. What's the real reason
I
that
have
they
I
don't?
have a question to everybody on the panel, and then I want to get on to some of the things that I want to get onto some more things. But on this panel, and I had to do my homework because after I got off the call last night, I was fuming. I was hot. They're lucky I didn't go live with Coffee with D late night last night and said some of this stuff that was going on. Said some of this stuff that was going on. So you have the chairman, Nicholas Figueroa, who voted to keep you. The vice chairman, Rankin, voted no. Cohen, who is a former lieutenant police officer, voted not to keep you as well. And mind you, Rankin's a former correctional officer. Fontaine, who's an attorney who doesn't even live in the city, from what I've investigated, and lives in Barrington, Rhode Island. Then you have I can't pronounce her name, but it starts with it's Phanida. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but last name Batiste. She voted against you. Susan DeRita voted against you. Elise Swearingen voted for you, and then Deborah Ray voted against. Voted against you.
Allison Eichler.
Sorry.
Allison Eichler. You I don't know what you said on that one.
No, Alice. It's not Allison. Allison wasn't. When I looked, there was no Allison. It was just Elise. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Jose.
Oh, I see. I see.
But when they had voted during that time, they did allow for public comment, and a lot of good public comments came out. But my big problem with the people on this board and is when you have someone who doesn't live in the district, and then you have a former Providence police officer, a lieutenant in the Providence Police, and a former correctional officer. I feel like that's three things going against you right there. How do you guys feel about something? Just give me your opinion on it. I don't even know how to form the question. I'm so alarmed by it.
Well, it seems like it's always the case where you have these sort of review boards and panels, and the people who put these panels together seem to think it's so important that the police have a presence on the panel. And it's like you want to have people who have expertise in the area that they're investigating, for sure. But I think we need to get beyond the level of police investigating themselves. Period.
Right.
That's it. That doesn't work.
Because if
Maybe
it was
in
working,
theory it works, but it
if it was
doesn't.
working, we wouldn't have years and years of police brutality. That's it.
Every police department has an
It'd be
internal
room for
affairs
error.
bureau, and they don't work. Period. They don't work. So we need to move beyond that, and we need to stop having police sympathizers and people who don't believe the police should ever be held accountable on these boards. Period.
Right.
I agree.
And why was Para also prevented from investigating the Jamal Gonzalez case?
Mm-hmm. I think
Jose's over there
was
smiling. He's like, guys, these are the same questions. This is
created not to work. The panel seems to be created not to work. It was like a bone that was thrown to the community because the community was clamoring for it as part of the CSA.
Right.
But it was made to fail. But we have to keep, holding the city accountable, holding the mayor. I mean, 2022 is a mayoral election. This needs to be at the forefront of that.
Absolutely.
I'm voting Taylor Neptune in 2022. I'm voting Taylor Neptune.
Don't you do that? Don't you? They don't want me nowhere near politics.
We'll get Ken to run your campaign. I'll be the field director. Taylor Neptune, 2022. You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. No, but
y'all
you're absolutely right. We have a mayoral election 4 years from now. We've got a lot of what I really am happy about at the state level. We've been able to turn a lot of seats in the state house. You're going to be going down to the state house in January, Jose. How do you feel about now? You're going to be working with a new Speaker of the House. Going to be look like a new leadership. How do you feel about that? Do you think you're going to be able to get things done and moving forward?
I do. I'm excited about that. I think the biggest thing that I'm happy about today is getting a chance to focus on that. I've been so worried about seeming partial or seeming political, even though I know I'm not. But any little thing that I did was going to be scrutinized, and so I'm really happy to turn my attention to that. I'm kind of smiling over here. I'll make 2 points about really the wonderful world that uh, the institution of policing lives in. Now, I don't want to take for granted that policing is a very dangerous job, obviously, and there are people who do amazing things. And so I don't mean to smirk or make any sarcastic comments, but I just want the public to think about 2 things, right? Sergeant Hanley did the things that he did, and he's been sitting at home getting paid ever since, right? Paid vacation ever since 7 months ago.
Sure.
7 months ago, he's still at home getting paid. Jose Batista doesn't assault anybody, releases the video of somebody getting assaulted, and I lose my job in 7 days. My man's getting paid 7 months later. I lose my job in 7 days. So where are the priorities in our society? Part of the problem with that is something that we call the Law Enforcement Officers Bill of Rights, and I can't wait to get to the State House to work on that. And then you bring up the Jamal Gonzalez case. I mean, everybody in the world has seen that video. I'm not an expert. I'm not a genius. I don't know reconstruction and DNA and all that stuff. But immediately you see the conversation. Oh, well, we don't know if the police car hit the moped or this, that, or the other. What privilege, right? What privilege we have to give ourselves 4 weeks, I think has been. Tomorrow is going to be a whole month since this incident happened. And to give ourselves the luxury of say, well, we don't want to jump to any conclusions. We have a camera that shows us exactly what happened, but Lord
Right.
forbid we jump to any conclusions. And so,
Right.
my little battle with Para might have been lost, but I'm hopeful that it'll serve a purpose in the broader fight. Because I mean, some of this stuff, like if it wasn't happening to me personally, it would be downright hysterical. I mean, the world that we live in, you know what I'm saying? If you or I or any civilian does something, the full weight of the government is going to come down on us. But if you put on a uniform, oh, we want to jump to conclusions now. And so, yeah, I'm excited about the State House. I think we're going to do good things, and I hope this is going to be a part of it.
Nice.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to do a little transition here for a little bit, but I'm gonna ask 2 questions to Tammy. The first question is, Tammy, you are a board member at Womex Project Artivism Efforts. Can you tell us a little bit more about that project?
Yes. So the Woman Project is an organization, a grassroots progressive organization that was formed in about 2017. And it was basically a bunch of people sitting around their kitchen table trying to figure out how to make sense of the world after the 2016 election and how to get involved and how to use their voices for good in the world. And so they ended up getting behind what was then the Reproductive Health Care Act and became the Reproductive Privacy Act. And that was their kind of primary legislative goal, was to get that act passed and codify Roe versus Wade, basically the right to abortion in Rhode Island state law. And so after over 25 years of trying to get this bill passed, the Woman Project and many other organizations and individuals across the state banded together, and in 2019 we got the Reproductive Privacy Act passed in the state legislature. And the Woman Project's approach to it was different because we worked with a lot of different organizations, but the Woman Project's perspective is that we use what we call artivism. We didn't invent the term artivism, but it's basically activism with art combined. Everything we do is kind of has a little flair of artistry to it. And it's because it kind of opens the doors to people. It's a way in for people who may not know how to become an activist or know how to advocate for a policy or for a legislative goal on their own, or they may have tried to work with different orgs and the phone banking or the canvassing or those type of traditional forms of grassroots activism maybe wasn't their thing. And so we say, well, okay, you can make a quilt with us, or you can do a dance with us, or you can do a reading, or you can write postcards, or whatever works for you. And we have a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different ways that people can get involved with activism and using their own voice, and people really have responded to that over the last 2 or 3 years.
Well, that sounds
So,
really good.
so I'm gonna ask this question, and then I'm gonna let Taylor go ahead and take over from there. But I'm gonna ask this question because right on the screen, right next to you, is somebody that's gonna be going down to the state house. Do you think the recent changes in the state legislature will help bring significant changes to the state? Or the more of the question I actually really want to ask, how can the state legislation help you in your efforts to push legislation for women? That's
So
the question I really want.
yeah, I think I have like a couple different thoughts about it. I'm really good friends with Jen Rourke, who ran the Rhode Island Political Cooperative and really fought to get a lot of progressive candidates elected in this last election cycle. And it's really important to elect people that reflect our values. I think, especially in Rhode Island, it's a state where it's essentially a one-party state. And what that means is that people know that in most parts of the state, if you have an R or a Republican sign next to your name, that people are skeptical of that. And so they'll just take the R away and they'll put an I for independent, or they'll put a D for Democrat, and they don't actually adhere to the Democratic Party platform in any way. So we're trying
Oh,
to,
yeah.
we're trying to change that. And a lot of people don't realize that, who are voting in Rhode Island. So I think that's really great to have people in the legislature who actually reflect our values as a state, but we have to still hold them accountable. Like, I think the power is actually with the people, in the legislature, and the legislators are there to execute our will, essentially, and we have to hold them accountable. And I was a little disappointed that we didn't have more changes in leadership, honestly, because leadership, the Speaker of the House and the Senate President are very powerful in terms of the legislative agenda. And so
It's true.
we need to, and I'm glad that Mattiello is no longer there. We'll
Oh,
see,
yeah.
You
you
and
know,
me both.
That
thank
was
the Lord
breaking
he's
news.
gone. However, it's still a good old boys network at the top
Yes, it
in
is.
the Rhode Island State House, and we need to do better at changing that and fighting that system. And so we need to just,
Right.
we can't, I think the thing that we, as activists with the Woman Project, because we're definitely like grassroots, bottom up kind of people power sort of organization, is realizing that like the democratic process doesn't stop on election day, it starts on election day.
Right.
And so we vote for the candidates that we want to uphold our values, and then we have to fight to hold them accountable every single time. I mean, the Woman Project itself, where we have a transparency in government letter that we're going to be releasing soon to make sure that this session is transparent, that they actually meet in a way that the public can access. And even with the concerns of COVID, is no excuse to not have meetings, to not have to defy public meetings laws, and to not let the public participate in the process
Right.
of the legislature. So we're pushing for that. And we just have to go from there, but make sure that regardless of how you were elected, that you're still, responsible to what the people
So
want.
I do have a question for the both of you, actually, if that's okay, Dee. I want to know. So you're speaking about these issues and these things that you deal with, and artivism and all the things that you work on with this project. Um, what do you think, Joe? First, I want to see because I think it would be interesting. What do you think is one of the biggest issues that women are facing right now in Rhode Island, for now at least? And what is something that makes you feel like you have to speak out about it? And I want to hear Joe's point of view as well because I think it's interesting to hear from a male what you think the females might be struggling with. But then I'll let
Who's
you come
Joe?
in and take that away.
Who's Joe?
You want me to go first?
What? I mean, I'm sorry, Jose. Wow. Wow.
I thought,
Wow.
oh, you
I
guys are
said
close. You kind of with Joe. Okay.
Listen, I've been called a lot worse. It's okay.
I would have
Um,
not known that I said Joe until Dion went back and repeated that.
I didn't know I thought we added somebody to the panel. I was like, whoa, oh, Joe's here too. Great, great.
I
How you doing,
definitely
Joe?
said Joe. I absolutely said Joe. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
yeah.
Well, Jose, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No worries, man. I so I'll say 2 to 3 things that come to mind in terms of um it's so interesting. I don't like to be the guy to try to be the first one to speak on issues that affect women. I think that's part of our problem that a lot of times you see in Washington D.C. or anywhere else, we'll have panels on women's health care and it's all men, right? And so there's a couple
You
issues
could
that stand
say
out
that.
to me. A couple issues that stand out to me, for example, representation, especially representation on the judiciary. I know that there's an effort to bring more women to the bench and especially women of color. There's a woman that I know named Elizabeth Ortiz, who's, the community is really rallying behind her to put her on the family court. There's a woman named Melissa Long, who's already a judge, but wants to apply to become a Supreme Court justice. And so we're really rallying behind that. And so making sure that, we're putting more women in powerful positions like on the judiciary and in positions in government. I know in my conversations with the speaker to be, Joe Shikarchi, one of the conversations that's being had with him is how do we transition from the former leadership to this one? And how do we make sure that in this leadership, we have more women that are committee chairs and in leadership positions because representation matters. On the legislative side, I know that the wage gap has been a pervasive issue and still is a pervasive issue. So figuring out how we can make sure that women are being paid for equal work.
That's definitely something that's high on my list, the wage gap.
One more time.
Wage gap, that's definitely something that I feel is a really big problem.
Yeah, so the wage gap is one, and then I'll say the last thing, a more general point. I think that more than legislation and laws, I think there's a big culture change that we need to change, and that is the fact that everything that I've learned in the Me Too movement. And so I think I'll give you an example of my frustration at the Providence Police Department and how I think about it and how I can internalize that to be better. I've sat, excuse me, I've sat at many tables and spoken to many powerful people while I was chairman of Para, not chairman, executive director. And at some point where you talk about racism and inequality, you just kind of get a blank stare, right? People just don't get it. And so it's really frustrating. For example, this video that you showed, how gruesome it is. And basically people thought that what I did was worse than what was on that video. And so we need to educate people to understand, sadly, the value of life. How do I flip that to my education about women? Even though I'm a person of color, I'm also a heterosexual male. And so, how do I check myself and my power and my language and how I think about women and how I talk about women? I'll be honest, and that part of it is talking about it, right? So I've learned a lot during the Me Too movement. I'm somebody who's Latin, grew up with Latin culture and customs, and sometimes, we're a very like huggy, warm culture, and that's not always appropriate. So I've had situations in my life where I've had to learn. Listen, I know I might mean well. I know I might be doing what I think is okay, but if I try to hug somebody and they don't want to be hugged, that's my bad. Like I need to check me for that. And so checking other men when they use language that's not appropriate, right? We need to stop thinking that sexism and discrimination is somehow like, oh, you're either an evil person or you're not. Like, for example, sometimes we talk about racism as if, okay, either you're wearing a white KKK hat or you're not. It's not, right? All of the people that we know
Yeah.
and love, we have elements of racism in us and sexism in us. So more broadly
Yeah.
beyond the positions and the legislation, it's really the culture and being honest about how we as men can do a better job to empower women across the board.
Absolutely.
Tammy?
And then Tammy?
Yeah, I mean, when I thought of this question initially, what's the biggest issue facing women? It's COVID. It's definitely COVID.
That's, oh boy. Yeah,
Um,
that's affecting us all.
So, and we know that women are frontline workers, women are caregivers, women have to bear the responsibility of childcare while also working from home, or while also like going out, to work in the community, and maybe their child is trying to do distance learning. So I think we really need to make sure we're providing supports for people in this time and always. And I think, like, we know that this coronavirus catastrophe and crisis is just laying bare all the issues that we already had as a society, as people of
Right.
color and as women, that make our lives just a lot harder. So I mean, I think that's like the main thing. Let's get that let's get that under control. Um, I think that but it again, like I said, it brings to the forefront issues of childcare, issues of, and I think the representation is always an issue. I think the way we think of people who speak up, people who speak out, and the attitudes we have. I mean, honestly, as the Woman Project, we face this as an organization. We're an entirely woman run and led organization. And we face a lot of pushback when we try to take the lead on things, when we try to advance
Absolutely.
certain legislative agendas, when we approach a problem from a different perspective other than the normal institutional way of doing it, we face a lot of pushback. And sometimes I wonder, is
Right.
that because we're um, doing something different, or is it because you don't like a bunch of women deciding that they don't have to listen to the way,
And
you know?
as a society, we definitely need to see some change with maternity leave, which is something I've
Yeah,
talked about being a big problem, and seeing that women aren't the only ones that have the sole responsibility of childcare. So
yeah.
that is a big one. I'm thank you for that.
So
But going into that, you said women get pushback. We wanted to hear, and I'll let Dee take this. We wanted to hear about your ordeal when you got a little bit of pushback in this recent protest.
so Tammy,
A little bit of
Tammy, listen,
pushback.
girl, girl, you supposed to be a special guest on my show a few weeks ago. And
Sorry.
it was crazy. Listen, I get the phone call right from my producer. He's like, listen, don't be alarmed. All right, because our producer, he's got like papers all here, the headset all off him. Things. He goes crazy. He goes crazy. It's fine. We love him,
Gilman.
Gelman. We love you. But anyway, but he was supposed to be on the show a few weeks ago. But you, in my eyes, you did something heroic that I wish I would have done, and I love it because it was old school. As you see, I'm old school protest. Dr. Martin Luther King is my boy. You know what I mean? And you allegedly, you changed yourself
Allegedly.
to the Supreme Courthouse in protest for Judge Amy Coney Barrett. You want to talk a
Hmm.
little bit about that?
Yeah.
Please tell us a little bit about that.
So the case is still ongoing. So I can't like go into super duper details about it, but I did allegedly um chain myself to a statue in front of the Supreme Court. Um, so like I think the stuff that Jose has been talking about and what he's gone through. I think like for me, I've been finding my voice as an activist in the last couple of years, and I don't know if it's something about the year that we're in, the year that we're having, and just looking at all the catastrophes we're seeing, but also in society,
So
the issues I write at the forefront are like just as horrible as ever. And it's important that even though we don't think that we're always fighting a winning battle, that we still have to stake our claim. We still have to make our voice heard. We still, if we see something wrong, we have to say it's wrong. Even, like I say, even if we know that it's that moment is not going to change the situation, we have to speak out and say, this is wrong. And so that was my whole thing is like, the idea that they're pushing through a Supreme Court justice, within weeks of the election when they didn't allow Merrick Garland to be seated 10 months before the election is totally infuriating. It's totally wrong. It goes against the spirit of the Constitution. It goes against the will of the people. And I was just like really mad about it. It wasn't just like me, but like all of us. I was really mad about it.
but this country has been crazy because, like, even after the election, we still deal with craziness. And I want to ask this last question. This is gonna be our last question of the night. I want to tell you guys have been great because I started off the top of the hour really hot about this. President Trump still hasn't officially started the process of transition. As an activist, as a legislator, what impact do you think this will uh, have on the over the process? What do you think is how's it going to affect our country? How's it going to affect the transition? We're going to go 60 seconds each of you.
Well, I'll
Let's start
just
with you,
say,
Tammy.
I mean, it's petty. It's petty AF. Like, what the hell? At this point, I mean, we've been dealing with all of this. We've been dealing with these shenanigans for the last 4 years. But come on, girl, this is petty. You're looking crazy. You're looking foolish. Just let it go.
You're foolish, and I pity the fool.
I pity the fool. But it's also, I mean, people's lives are at stake right now. People are literally dying. 1,000 people, more than that, are dying every single day from this virus. And this petty POS is like not letting Biden even in. Like he's not even like what the heck? Like I can't even conceive of it. So yeah, it's gonna have a lot of consequences. I think as we transition over into the next year, we're going to see what real leadership, looks like for a change. And it's important. Like, I believe in the power of the people and all that stuff, but like leadership is important too. And, wouldn't it be nice to have it these days?
Oh, yeah.
Jose?
I ba, 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 ba.
Come on, Joe. I mean, Jose. I mean, Joe.
I think Tammy put it really well. I'm going to second everything she said. And I'm going to add one more thing. Shout out to Barack Obama, new book on the bookshelves today. Go buy it, read it, restore your faith in America because we're going to need it.
Mm-hmm.
Taylor, how do you feel? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about it?
Honestly, like I've told you multiple times, I would be nothing more than thrilled, like more thrilled than I've been in my entire life to see him getting dragged the way that guy was getting dragged in that video out of the office. Nothing would make me happier. I mean, I am hoping and praying that because just like his wall, he never built the unscalable fence around the White House that he was talking about, that we can easily get him out of the physical house, but getting him to quiet down and not talk and not cause other problems, that's where I'm worried, so to speak.
Here's my final thought on this. Everybody. First, let me thank the entire panel. Let me thank Jose. Let me thank Tammy. Of course, my good co-host Taylor. Thank you so much. Thank you. I just want to say to the technical staff, Chris, I know you're there. You're doing it all. Man. Thank you. Shout out to Chris tonight. Shout out to Ken. Shout out to Jaden. Shout outs everywhere. But I'm gonna say this. Somebody please get Anita Recount out the office because all she's doing is destroying us, making us vulnerable. Next thing you know, Yeah, and you know what? I'm sorry. I can't even call Donald Trump a she. I can't even call it at this point. Not a he, not a human. Like, who does this? Who stomps their feet, cries when they don't win and don't get I know.
Oh, there goes Dion.
Oh, and there goes Dion. Well, that's interesting.
I got kicked out. I
It
got
was just
kicked out
too
my
much.
own call.
That
I
was
got
you,
kicked
just
out
too
my
much
own
for the
call.
show.
How
You
dare
were
they? He done it. Listen, let me tell you something, Donald Trump. Don't be listening in on my conversations and what we be talking and things like that. You ain't the president no more. Cutting me off.
to get him started.
No. But thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rhode Island. Everyone,
Thank
have a
you.
wonderful night. Night, Rhode Island.
Thank you so much, guys.